Yeah, I've been listening to the debate, and I think that whilst I can't defend the Tories in their entirety, there's a lot of mistakes, and I agree the country is very, very broken. I do think that Sunak is the safer pair of hands when it comes to the economy.
Safer than who?
Safer than Labour. And the reason I'm saying that is that the Labour government, last time they were in power, when Cameron took over, left a note on the desk to say there was no more money in the coffers. They bankrupted the country.
No, you've forgotten the 2008 global financial crisis.
No, I haven't.
No, you have.
No, I haven't.
No,
there were pension rates.
You clearly have.
Trust me. Please don't put words in my mouth, because
I didn't. I was telling you the words you hadn't said.
I went through and experienced very heavily the financial crisis in 2008. But nonetheless, Labour were irresponsible in the spending, having raided pensions and everything else. And that balance has got to be heard on this conversation, whether you like it or not. Well, you can say all you like, and when you say that Brexit was a ridiculous situation, well, there's 51% of the country voted for it. We're not all ridiculous. We're quite intelligent, quite informed.
What's the best bit of it?
What's the best bit of it?
Yeah, what's the biggest benefit?
I don't think that the full benefit has been executed by the Tories.
No, but the bits that have been executed, what's your favourite?
Because we've got independence.
No, I mean, as in something that we can see and something we can see and measure. So which law? Which is your favourite?
Various laws.
Just name one.
No, I'm not going to fall into that. I'm just saying.
Well, you can't come on the radio and say there's loads of great laws, and then I say, could you tell me one of them? You have to tell me one of them, Anne.
No, I don't.
Well, obviously you don't. It's not the law.
No, the law.
Well, except possibly it is the law. So what do you like most? What do you like?
However,
what
hasn't happened by the Tories,
with respect, that's just ignorance.
No, it's not ignorance.
Well, give me an example then. Give me an example.
What I'm going on to say is what the Tories have failed to do.
Can I have one example?
Brexit. No, I don't need to give you an example.
You do, otherwise everyone's going to think you're very silly. No, you have to give me one example.
The conversation is really, really biased in
It's not biased. It's biased in favour of evidence and examples.
And they're all as bad as each other.
So what's your example?
What's your example? I've given you the example.
You haven't. You just used words like control with no proof. So what's your proof that we have more control? Go on then.
I've got proof. Don't look it up. Don't Google it.
No, you can't say I've got proof. You can't say I've got proof.
At the end of the day,
go and Google it.
You have got.
So give me some proof.
Of parties here that are all as bad as each other.
Yes, except they're not all as bad as each other, because people on the other side of this argument, if we can use that word very, very loosely, they will point at things that have happened. For example, having to choose the 12 people that could attend the funeral of your 16-year-old son. That is not something that makes Labour the same as the Conservatives. But we're talking about Brexit. We're talking... let me speak, please. And then you go back to that note as well in the... in the Treasury, which actually nudged back to something that Reggie Maudling did when he was the Conservative Chancellor and left a very similar message. There's no money left, old Pip, or something like that for his Labour
that's a long
success.
Time ago. But,
well, you're talking about 14 years ago, so your point is ridiculous.
No, it's not. It's a big event that has led to, along with COVID, and
why do you think that every economy in the world, arguably, certainly in the free world, followed the advice of Alistair Darling and and Gordon Brown when it came to dealing with the global financial crisis and the policy of quantitative easing? When Gordon Brown went to France, even though he hadn't actually been invited, and persuaded, I think, Sarkozy to let him speak to all the EU leaders, or the European Eurozone leaders, and Alistair Darling flew to Washington to speak to America, why do you think they all took the advice of the two Labour politicians? Anne?
Sorry, say that again.
Why do you think every government in the world, practically, followed the advice of Gordon Brown and Alistair Darling when it came to emerging from the global financial crisis of 2008?
You tell me.
Because they were brilliant.
Really?
Well, no, that's my answer. It's your turn.
Yeah,
it's your turn now.
Well, my turn is to say they weren't that brilliant, because all they were doing was storing up a load of problems that got taken over in 2010.
No, but those are just words. They don't actually mean anything. They were solving.
They're not words.
No, well, they are words, Anne. We can at least agree that they're words that you said.
But it's 2010. There's no money in the budget.
No, the 2010 is a consequence of the global financial crisis of 2008, and the direction of traffic at the time was positive. Alistair Darling was improving a situation that the Tories then came in and tried to address with austerity. And the fact that you have to cling to something as ridiculous as a 40...
Not clinging to it.
Well, hang on, you don't know what I've said yet. How can you say it's not ridiculous?
Go on then. Finish it.
You have to cling to something as ridiculous as a 14-year-old private joke between at least one person of whom didn't think it would ever be made public is evidence that you haven't really got anything substantive to say. Well, except, that's not fair. Except, of course, I've got loads of examples, but I can't tell you what they are. You're going to have to go and Google it yourself.
No, I think there's some manipulation of what I've said, and I think 14 years...
Feel free to remind me what the benefits are.
It shouldn't be a joke to anybody.
What are the benefits of Brexit? What are the benefits?
It's public money, and it should be important to everybody listening and everybody not listening. It's public money, and there was none left. So spending money that wasn't there. You can't run a business that way.
Is the debt bigger or smaller today than it was then?
Bigger.
So whose fault is that then?
COVID.
Oh, I see. Right. So the global financial crisis had nothing to do with the state of the economy when Labour lost in 2010, but the failure of... So what was the figure before COVID? What was the debt before COVID, Anne?
You tell me.
No, you tell me, because you're the one that's insisting that Rishi Sunak is a safer pair of hands than the Labour Party. So you tell me.
The facts speak for themselves. Inflation has come down, hasn't it?
Yes, and it also went up. So your point is what?
It did go up, and the reason it went up was in part linked to COVID and in part linked to the legacy issues, of which, yes, the Tories are part of it.
Give me your favourite legacy issue. What's your favourite legacy issue, Anne?
My favourite legacy issue is what I've just said, which is that they were bankrupt. But I don't think we're going to get anywhere, so we'll agree to disagree.
No, we won't. I never agree to disagree with people who haven't got any evidence to support their position. So what I suspect you're going to do now is just hang up. I'm like Nostradamus. Thank you, Nick. The time is approaching 10 o'clock and, well, there's a lot to get through today. For example, have you ever had violent race riots named after you, or indeed been accused by the head of the Met of emboldening the racist thugs responsible? Has your vile and ignorant rhetoric ever helped instigate attempts to burn people alive in their beds? Have you ever cited a self-described misogynist facing rape and people trafficking charges in Romania as a trustworthy news source for events in the UK? Or described yourself as part of a similar phenomenon to him? Have you ever helped a convicted woman beater get elected to the UK Parliament? And have any newly elected MPs spent more time in America getting binned off by Donald Trump than they have in their own constituency? And what would you call someone who answers yes to all those questions? Did I call them the Farage riots? I'm so sorry. I should have said Farage. The Farage riots. I apologise to everybody concerned for that little slip of the tongue. What did he say about violence? I didn't quite catch it.
If they don't deliver this Brexit that I spent 25 years of my life working for, then I will be forced to don khaki, pick up a rifle, and head for the front lines.
Gosh. And of course, one is left with the other question of where the idea to target these hotels came from, why the idea to target hotels containing completely innocent human beings, children included, of course, some of whom witnessed rioters drawing their fingers across their throat in a throat-cutting gesture while they were cowering in buildings that were already on fire. Where on earth would the people currently being convicted of rioting got the idea that targeting these hotels would be a good plan?
We've no idea who some of these people are. We've no idea whether some of these might be ISIS.
That was Farage himself, filming himself in 2020 at a hotel where asylum seekers were being accommodated. I mean, you know, it's a wonderful rhetorical tactic, isn't it? I have no idea whether that man over there might be a paedophile. I'm just asking questions. I've no idea whether that woman over there might be a terrorist. I'm just asking questions. But the kind of people setting fire to bins and hotels and attacking police officers receive a very different message, don't they, from that kind of rhetoric. Well, at least I kind of think they do. So he's very unhappy about these riots being called the Farage riots. The explanation of why he posted that original clip suggesting that the authorities were keeping information from the police and indeed that the police were keeping information from the people and indeed that the culprit had been on intelligence watch lists or indeed had been a Muslim. That was extraordinary. I should probably play you that bit as well. Who do you think his source was? Where would you turn to for your information? Where would you turn to for your reliable information on what was going on in Britain? Would you turn to me for the facts? Would you turn to the BBC? Perhaps GBB's is your preferred broadcast outlet, but you'd probably want to double check or triple check, wouldn't you, the provenance of these claims. So you've seen on social media or you've come across the claim somewhere that the police are deliberately keeping information from, and that is the single greatest reason why police officers, some of whom will be listening to this program, some of whom their wives, their husbands, their partners, their children will be listening to this program. Police officers coming under sustained and vicious attack from members of the public who believe the lie that the police were somehow complicit in keeping information from the public, a lie that you just heard issued from Nigel Farage's own nicotine-stained lips, albeit with the constant caveat, I don't know, I'm just asking questions. I don't know whether he's feigning ignorance of British law or whether he is genuinely ignorant of British law, but the police can't decide to release any names at all, especially when they're under 18. That decision has to be taken by a High Court judge. But why let the facts stand in the way of an opportunity to inflame the sort of violent thugs that have been terrorising completely innocent and law-abiding citizens up and down our country for the last week? Why let the facts stand in the way of the feelings? But where do you think he was getting his information from? This sitting member of Parliament, this elected MP, where do you think this broadcaster, this self-styled journalist, where do you think he was getting his information from? Where do you think he turns to when he wants to get a really clear steer on what's actually going on in Britain? It wouldn't be an alleged human trafficker and organised criminal based in Romania, surely. It just wouldn't be, would it? There's no earthly way anybody would claim that they only put this poison into public discourse because they believed what they read on the social media feed of a Romania-based alleged human trafficker and organised criminal. Not even Nigel Farage would stoop that low, surely, to try to exonerate his own culpability in this crisis by claiming that he had acted in an entirely honourable fashion by taking the words of an alleged human trafficker and organised criminal as potential gospel.
This is the problem, isn't it? One of the reasons the Southport riots were as bad as they were is we weren't told the truth. There were stories online from some very prominent folks with big followings, Andrew Tate, etc.
Whoa, what? Andrew Tate? Literally the alleged human trafficker and organised criminal. So here we have a British MP claiming that his decision to inject poison into the bloodstream of the British public, encouraging people like the young man in Liverpool who has just pleaded guilty to violent disorder, but who in April, of course, was canvassing for Nigel Farage's political party, encouraging them to join public violence where the police are being accused of keeping information from the public. Nigel Farage's source for this was Andrew Tate's social media account? But he's absolutely adamant that the riots had nothing to do with him.
At no point in the last week, or in the previous 30 years, have I ever encouraged the use of violence. Have I ever encouraged the use of anti-democratic means. And yet, you get the internet, and people saying things on the internet. We have senior Labour politicians, like Andy MacDonald, saying, I wanted the riots to happen. Mm-hmm. We have former Conservative MPs like Anna Soubry saying that I orchestrated the riots. Mm-hmm. We have LBC presenters like James O'Brien calling them the Farage riots. I have had nothing to do with any form of street violence now or at any point in my career.
And yet all of the people engaging in the street violence believed what Nigel Farage told them might be true just 1 week ago. Trump remains likely to become, he has as much chance as Kamala Harris, to become the President of the United States of America, not despite being a fascist, but because he is a fascist. People like it. It's such an odd moment of realization when you think of any regime in the past that has deployed fascistic tropes. Mussolini, I suppose, most obviously. Hitler. Others in Central Europe. You had a fascist regime in Spain. I think the Greeks had a fascist military junta for a while. The people go along with it. Enough people are in favour of it to allow it to happen. I wonder whether if you could somehow have a plebiscite in Russia, a genuine plebiscite, I wonder whether there'd be a majority support there for Vladimir Putin. I suspect there might be. There probably would be, not least because he does such a good job of controlling the news. And he also, of course, has spent billions of dollars upon trying to influence the American news cycle, to the point where Jeff Bezos, the owner of the Washington Post, having failed to endorse the one that isn't a fascist, has now written an op-ed for his own newspaper, for which he paid less than he pays for the average yacht that as the second richest man in the world he routinely purchases, about how America doesn't trust the news media. It's almost like their work is done. Musk and Bezos have destroyed the notion of objective truth. They have done the Orwell bit for Donald Trump, where you ignore the evidence of your own eyes and ears. Once you've done that, then anything can happen. Most obviously and most usually, fascism. So we are now at the point where you either describe it as a fascist movement or you lie to yourself and to others. And I think if he wins, thank you to Mark, who sent me a clip of Bernie Sanders describing Donald Trump as a fascist. I can't quite see it yet on my tech. I'll check it during the break, but I don't know what the date on it is. But you see my point. You start off shouting down someone like Bernie Sanders, or shouting down someone to the left of the New York Times editorial staff, or shouting down a former Clinton aide, and you end up shouting down that with the same noise and the same personnel, you end up shouting down Donald Trump's former Attorney General and Donald Trump's former Chief of Staff, generals queuing up to condemn him. Reports of him saying that he wants to be like Hitler. He wants to have generals like Hitler had, generals that did whatever he demanded, regardless of the law, regardless of the Constitution, regardless of the decency, the basic morality of it all. And it's there now. Anyone who denies it is a liar. And of course, all fascists are liars, because so much of their worldview depends upon the idea that your immutable characteristics, your ethnicity, most obviously, possibly the religion you were born into, which is immutable. Just ask victims of the Holocaust. You don't get to say, I am no longer a Jew. I am no longer a Roma. It's there. That's what fascism is. So you have to tell that lie. You have to tell the lie about a sort of hierarchy of basic humanity. I saw a clip of Tucker Carlson, who remains central to Donald Trump's project at the moment, talking about using words to describe Kamala Harris as if they were de facto insults. He used the word Samoan, as if it just by dint of not being white or not being white Anglo-Saxon, you are inferior. And you can see what they feel about ethnicity and race by listening to the words that they use as insults. Up to and including the bloke yesterday who described Puerto Rico as a floating island of garbage. That's only one part of fascism. The other parts, of course, are impunity for your allies and persecution of your enemies, even if their crime is to have tried to uphold the law. So it's all there. It happens democratically. We read about Hitler, we read about Mussolini, we read about military juntas, we read about Franco, and we think, well, crikey, it must have been, how? You watch Star Wars. I know I'm making my dystopian pop culture references a bit too frequently at the moment, but you think, how are they going? I mean, and the answer is simple. You oppress everybody except the people that love you. And the people that love you love the stuff that repels the rest of us. So that's just true now. That's not an opinion, that's just counting. Those three things, I still can't quite unravel or riddle. So the Dixville thing is easy. That was me naively thinking, oh, well, the game's up. If three people can shift out of 6, if 50% of a tiny and probably unrepresentative electorate can make such a huge leap from pro-Biden to pro-Trump, then I think the game is up for Kamala Harris. Mateless telling me a year ago that the priority for many of the people she was talking to was the price of petrol at the pumps. I don't want to describe liberal discombobulations about things like rape and election theft. I don't want to describe that as a luxury, but it's clear that for a majority of the American election, none of this matters enough. It doesn't matter enough. It's dispiriting but grimly predictable that people like Suella Braverman can share their views on this without being asked questions about things like rape and election theft, and can say things about the left describing him as a fascist when in fact it was his own national security advisor. But that's a failure of media in this country that has been in place since long before 2016. But the electorate don't care enough about these things to overshadow or overcome their fears, I think, first about the economy and second about immigration. But I don't think you can separate those two things. If you know, you've seen it happen here. Don't look up, look down. The reason why your financial situation is not as healthy as you would like it to be is because of the people that mow your lawn and deliver your food. It's not because of the people who run the country or the people that own Twitter or the people that own Amazon. It's because of him over there delivering your tacos. Little nod to my American listeners there. And that is where I am at 21 minutes after 10 this morning. Very, very simply, none of the stuff matters enough. And that is why, look, Daniel Finkelstein is a conservative member of the House of Lords, the founder of one of the think tanks that became a kind of madrasa for conservative politicians, a very close ally of David Cameron and George Osborne, a key part of the process that propelled them to the very forefront of the Conservative Party. Therefore, he is someone with whom I would hardly ever disagree. And yet, I beg your pardon, hardly ever agree. And yet, the point he makes is, I think, inarguable. An alarming number of people don't care at all about liberal democratic norms, as long as things are all right for them, or as long as they think that the person trashing liberal democratic norms is going to be good for them, has their interests at heart. Whether that's true or not is immaterial. It's moot, isn't it? I'll read that to you again. An alarming number of people don't care at all about liberal democratic norms as long as things are all right for them. And they rather think, quotes, strongman, end quotes, rule. Personal note, the weirdest thing about Donald Trump support is the notion that he's some sort of strongman when he's an incredibly thin-skinned man-child. But maybe all strong men through history were. They just had good PR. They think that this strongman rule might be better than rule by a load of squabbling politicians. They like that Trump, or they believe that Trump is a successful and ruthless businessman. They like that he belittles other people. They think he's doing it on their behalf. And I won't share with you yet Finkelstein's evidence that this applies in the UK as well, because I need to get a phone-in up and running. I think I do. You know me. It's one of those days. I'd quite happily talk uninterrupted until 12 noon today, but I don't know that that's necessarily what you've tuned in for. Some of you tell me that you have, and that's very kind. But we need to puzzle this stuff together. So I don't think you can argue with that conclusion. An alarming number of people, enough people to elect a president, don't care at all about liberal democratic norms. As long as, and then you can insert whatever sentence you want here to take you back to where this introduction began, as long as it brings down the price of petrol, as long as it improves my spending power in Walmart, as long as it makes me feel better about myself. An alarming number of people, a majority probably of the popular vote in America, do not care at all about liberal democratic norms, as long as things are all right for them. And remember, this article, which I heartily recommend, was written before the results came in. I'll give you one statistic. This is from a bit of polling that was done for a British think tank. Support for a strong leader who doesn't have to bother with parliament or elections was at 46%. So we're living in a world where enough people to deliver election victories do not care, actively reject liberal democratic norms. Eleanor's just written the word time in 6-inch high letters on the screen in front of me, which I think is a fair comment. Time, gentlemen, please. So what do we do about that? What do we do about that? If you don't care about liberal democratic norms, I see you. I know you. You're tuning in to hear me have a breakdown or to feast on my liberal tears. But for those of us who do care, what do we do with the news? What do we do with the discovery that most Americans don't? Let me just read you one paragraph, one sentence even, from the Sunday Times yesterday, who have been working with Channel 4's Dispatches programme on an investigation into what they call the Duchy Files. It's just, it is truly extraordinary. Over 5 months, we identified 5,410 landholdings, mineral rights and properties held by the Duchy of Lancaster on behalf of the King and the Duchy of Cornwall for the Prince, and then examined business agreements and leases linked to these plots. I've lost the room, right? That's quite dull. Sounds a bit dry. Well, what's he doing? Just listen to this sentence. These contracts show the duchies generate profits by charging the army, the navy, hospitals, the prison service, schools and councils for the right to use lands, rivers and seashores seized for the duchies in medieval times. I have absolutely no idea what the phone-in is going to be today, but I felt that this was a story of such remarkable relevance to so much that we talk about together that it would be profoundly remiss of me not to discuss it today. These contracts show the duchies generate profits by charging the army, the navy, hospitals, the prison service, schools and councils for the right to use lands, rivers and seashores seized for the duchies in medieval times. The Duchy of Lancaster raised, wait for it, £27.4 million for the King last year alone, while the Duchy of Cornwall raised a cool 23.6 for his oldest son. And this allows them to pay for their private homes, their personal income and their staff. The annual declaration includes only very, very basic details of assets and activities in annual reports. I'll give you an example. Duchy of Lancaster has a deal with Guy's and St Thomas's NHS Trust in London that will charge the NHS. Think about the budget and the importance of raising more money for the NHS. The Duchy of Lancaster, as in the King's side hustle, will charge the NHS £11 million over the next 15 years for the right to park ambulances in one of its warehouses. The Duchy of Cornwall, which is Prince William's side hustle, receives rent for Dartmoor Prison in a contract under which the Ministry of Justice will pay £37 million. The reason I say I don't know, people are telling me not to forget the RNLI. I might allow a caller to bring that particular element of the story to our attention, because it's one of those stories that is almost impossible to get a proper grip on. The royal family are sold to us as paragons of patriotism, right? They are the very pinnacle of national pride. You cannot criticise the royal family without running a risk of being treasonous or being accused of treachery. So I don't know how naive it is to therefore presume that they would do more than everybody else to uphold the sort of values and indeed institutions that we consider to be crucial to our national infrastructure. I don't know off the top of your head what sort of institutions you'd put in that category. How about the army, the navy, hospitals, the prison service, schools and councils? You see, this is probably the best way to convey the size of the story. So I read out those things and you see people and you see organisations that are dedicated to the public good, right? The army, the navy, hospitals, schools, councils, even the prison service. You make a list of those things, and ordinary people see them as things that we have to pay for the public good. Things that, I suppose, in a slightly less bent country, we'd be proud to pay for. I'm glad that my taxes go towards the Navy. I'm glad that my taxes go towards the Army, the NHS, the education system, even the prison service. These are things to which we contribute in expectation of a return, should we ever need them, or a social benefit, should we not ever need them. King Charles and his son look at those organisations as profits, as potential profits. How much money? Do you think they compare notes over Christmas lunch? How much money did you make out of the NHS last year, Pops? It's just extraordinary. At least I think it is. I need to give a quick shout to my mum, actually. I to tell her that she's not actually going mad. I spoke to Mum on Friday after the show, and she said, I saw you on telly last night. And I said, no, you didn't. She said, you were in that Prince William homelessness documentary. I said, no, I wasn't. I categorically would remember if I'd contributed to a Prince William. And poor old Mum, sort of nodding off in front of the telly, began to wonder whether she dreamed the whole thing. It turns out I was in it. And I should have known. I was told about it months ago. But just a little clip of me reading out something from the chap that runs Republic, Graham, who runs Republic, and just pointing out that there's something, what's the word I want? There's something incongruous. That's a nice word, isn't it? There's something incongruous about Prince William, laudable though the impulse is, tasking himself with solving homelessness when he is taking £23.6 million from a duchy that generates profits by charging the army, the navy, hospitals, the prison service, schools and councils for access to property seized by his ancestors in medieval times. The other reason why I said I wasn't quite sure what phone-in we were going to have today is because I don't know quite what to say next. I don't want to draw too heavy parallels with Trump. But when you listen to Trump supporters and you realise there's nothing he can do that would shed support. Remember, he said himself, he understood this in a way that I don't think normal people ever could. He could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and not lose a single vote. I have a slightly unhealthy fascination with how far capped offers, forelock tuggers and client journalists will go to defend the indefensible. I'm not quite sure how you'd how would you even begin to defend this in a country that we've, if we didn't know already, then we've learnt since the budget last week, is in dire need of financial injection, dire need of public service spending, to discover that the people for whom we wave flags whenever they get married or have a baby are, siphoning epic sums of money from institutions and organisations which we support by either paying tax or donating. That's the bit I can't get my head around. Every single institution on this list, we support by either paying taxes or donating on our taxed income to charities like the RNLI. And these guys, they take money out of it. Now, I've told you before, and I will tell you again, historically, I'm not very good at royal phone-ins. There have been some exceptions, I guess, in recent years. The old adage hasn't proved as true, or the old tradition hasn't proved as true. But I think this might be why, because this is so obviously egregious that you almost can't go there. This is an inequality so baked into our society that you can't quite imagine anything ever being different. Do you see what I mean? It's as if you're being presented with something so utterly hideous. Institutions that we support by paying tax and making donations. The king and his son are milking on an annual basis in return for an ancient privilege stolen during medieval times. And I wonder whether deep down we all know what the royal family represents. You know that hymn I got obsessed with a few years ago? Not the hymn itself, everyone likes all creatures great and small, but that little verse that no one knew about, or that we'd all forgotten about. The rich man in his castle, the poor man at his gate, God made them high and lowly and ordered their estate. In an increasingly godless world, How do you keep this sort of inequality in place? Charlie is in Weymouth. Charlie, what would you like to say?
I would like to make 2 points. I'm going to correct you on your 7-year thing, and then I'm going to fill in the gap in your knowledge.
I've got the HM Revenue and Customs page in front of me on the 7-year thing.
Perfect. So
it's not me you're correcting. It's the official advice.
No. It is you.
Okay.
You've got the wrong end of the stick.
Okay.
But so with the 7-year thing, are you happy that a farmer can pass it on in 7 years inheritance tax free?
Hang on, you're supposed to be correcting me.
Yeah. No, I'm asking you a question.
Oh. Am I happy? Well, everyone enjoys that freedom.
Yeah.
So I mean, in an ideal world, probably get rid of all the loopholes. But I think that would be brutal.
So why is it then that it's acceptable to pass on a farm in 7 years from now, but for someone that's worked on that farm for the last 40 years, all of a sudden they can't get that? If their dad died 2 years ago, if their parents die in before this thing comes in, they're going to get hit by inheritance tax. They've worked that farm for their entire life.
Yes.
Why is that? Why is that different?
You've just explained why it's different. Because the rules have changed.
So exactly
to meet the new need, and also, of course, 1984 was the point this was introduced. So,
that's right.
So 40 years is the perfect point to pick, isn't it? Because prior to 1984, you'd have been paying more inheritance tax, and all those farms.
No, they wouldn't. No, they wouldn't.
Yes, you would. So how was that fair?
No, they wouldn't, because 40 years ago, farmland wasn't the price it is now.
Prior to but the percentage that you'd pay on it would have been the same, not the total.
Percentages,
yes, but tax is all about percent. I'm enjoying being corrected by you, Charlie, but you must let me get a word in edgeways. Tax is all about percentages, not totals. It's about the proportion of the total that goes to the taxman. So because of inflation, hang on. Because of inflation, obviously all the numbers are going to be higher.
It's not inflation.
Okay, because of some mysterious magic formula, all the numbers are going to be higher than they were 40 years ago. But just to show you politely the error of your ways. The reason why rules change is because of economic policy. So your point is as valid as ringing me in 1984 and complaining about how unfair it is that you had to pay inheritance tax last year in 1983, and a farmer who passes away next year in 1985, his heirs won't have to pay any inheritance tax at all. Do you see the rules change?
No. Hang on. If you let me get a word in edgeways now, how much was land worth in 1984 per acre?
But you keep asking me questions.
Well,
considerably less. Well, how much was my house worth?
Yes.
How much was my house worth? How much was my house worth in 1984, Charlie? Answer the question.
Just now, you said that if you don't have the information, you make bad decisions. So in 1984, the average cost of an acre was £3,780.
And the average cost of a house?
I've no idea. I'm not talking about houses. I'm talking about acres.
No, you're talking about inheritance tax, which applies to houses. So what was the average cost of a house in 1984?
I've no idea, James. I don't care about houses. I'm caring about acres. That's what we're talking about.
I'll give you a spoiler alert. They cost a lot less 40 years ago than they do now.
£3,788.
But the percentage of tax that you pay is the same regardless of how much the estate is worth.
Right, so you're quite happy. You're quite happy that they can get.
I don't know that I'm happy, Charlie. I mean, that's an existential question. But if I'm offered a choice,
and now I tell you what, because we're not going to agree on this, I'll tell you why.
We can't disagree about counting.
I will tell you.
It's
why
not an opinion. It's just counting.
If you stop talking over me and let someone who actually knows speak for once, and I know that's difficult for you, James.
Why are you so rude, Charlie? It's not my fault.
Rude.
It's not my fault.
You've just made. You're the rudest person on the radio because you sit there with your thumb in your nose.
I'm the second rudest person on the radio at the moment. At this moment, Charlie, it's not my fault you're feeling silly. It's now 2024.
Blah blah blah.
Okay,
the point is,
I know
what I'm talking about. You don't, and you won't listen.
I'll be quiet for a full 60 seconds.
Fantastic. Right. Okay. I'll tell you why it's different when a farmer inherits a farm and when I inherit my parents' house. So when I inherit my parents' house, my personal house, my job, my pension, my investments, they are all protected. Do you understand that?
It's not true. You have inheritance tax to pay on the estate that you inherit from your parents. You just pay double what you would on farmland.
No. My job is protected. I pay inheritance on the asset I inherit.
Yes, the asset.
Yeah, exactly. So my house...
And the farm, isn't that...
Well,
I'm supposed to be quiet. Carry on. But if you say things that aren't true, I have to interrupt.
my house is not impacted by me inheriting my parents' house. Do you agree with that? My personal income, my personal job, my personal investments are not impacted by me inheriting my parents' house.
Well, unless it's a B&B and you work there or something like that, unless the property is part of your business. But this is about agricultural land.
Right, okay, so now let's talk about agricultural land. So when a farmer inherits his farm that he's been working on for all of his life,
not necessarily. We just spoke.
Going to be quiet.
But you've had 60 seconds now.
You're talking over people again, James.
But you're not making sense, Charlie.
Well, you haven't let me finish.
Okay, you finish, James. You finish then, Charlie.
So when a farmer inherits his farm and he can't afford to pay that inheritance tax because it's hundreds of thousands of pounds and he only makes £30,000 a year.
Well, can we crunch the numbers quickly?
That's his home, James.
Can we crunch the numbers quickly?
Yeah, by all means.
So hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of tax, presuming, of course, that it's passed from spouse to spouse and then to heir. So it's in excess of £3 million. So for hundreds of thousands of pounds at a 20% tariff, regardless of what the figure is, the percentage is 20%. You'd have to be living in an estate worth sort of £6, £7, or £8 million.
No, 4.5 million, James.
No, hundreds of thousands of pounds. You said.
4.5, yeah, exactly.
So that's 1.5 million, 20% of 1.5 million over 10 years.
Yeah, and how are you going to pay that?
40% for everybody else.
How are you going to pay that when you earn 25 grand a year?
The same. Well, I don't. How can you possibly be arguing, Charlie? Charlie.
My house is protected. When a farmer inherits his farm, his house is at risk.
Why don't you sell some stuff?
Like what, James?
Well, some of your land.
Who's going to buy it? Who's going to buy it?
I don't know. Lots of people are trying to buy land.
We spoke to. That's the funny thing.
What do you want a name?
Farmer's not going to buy it,
John.
are they?
John's going to buy it. John is going to buy it.
John's going to build solar panels on it.
John. I don't know what he's going to do with it, but he's going to. But you asked me who was going to buy it, which you don't recognise.
We've had the offers.
You're shouting at me again.
Solar panels. We've had the offers for wind farms.
Well, there you go. Then what are you complaining about?
Because we don't want to concrete over the land. I know you're a townie. I know you're happy living in your liberal elite world of London. But for us, the countryside is the countryside. It's where our food comes from, James.
So you've been offered.
You seem to have forgotten that. You seem to have forgotten that, haven't you, James?
Charlie, you don't
accept it.
Okay, mate. I'm going to have a
I'm not your mate. I hate you. I think you're an idiot.
Okay.
I think you're a lefty, liberal, woke idiot.
Okay, Charlie. The thing about solar panels or indeed wind farms is that they create energy. Now, can you think of any profession?
I'm an electrical engineer, James. I know how that works.
Can you think of any profession you have some experience of that uses a lot of energy?
Yeah, absolutely.
What?
I'm an electrical engineer, James. So all of the things I do requires a lot of energy.
Oh, okay. So finding ways to produce energy. At the moment, what's rapeseed oil used for?
Oil, cooking oil for a start.
No, what's it used for? It's used to produce energy, right?
No, cooking oil.
That's heat.
No.
Yes.
Cooking oil, James. When you go and get a bottle of oilseed rape out your cupboard, where do you think it came from?
That's not all the rapeseed. The industrial production of oil is part of the energy production process, and the same is true of solar panels. Mate, they are telling you that they're going to give you money with which you can then pay your inheritance tax, and you're saying, I don't want it. I want to carry on earning a pittance.
Exactly.
Oh, well, then we're in agreement then.
We're farming an outstanding area of natural beauty. We don't want to see solar panels there. I'm shocked, but not surprised that you do.
Well, I don't like fossil fuels.
Oh, well, in that case, let's tarmac the countryside.
No,
James doesn't like fossil fuels. Let's tarmac the AOMBs. Let's tarmac them. Yeah, get some solar farms on there. Yeah, why not, James? Hey, James, you like immigrants. You probably want to see some homes there as well, don't you?
Well, down with homes.
When was the last time you went to a farm?
Down with homes.
When was the last time you went to a farm?
When was the last time I went to a farm? Is that a trick question?
No.
About 3 months ago.
3 months ago, right. What was you doing on that farm?
I was buying pumpkins.
Right, okay. So you've never
less than three.
Farm.
I grew up on a working farm. This is such a strange argument. In a sentence, I grew up on a working farm. I probably should have mentioned that sooner. I grew up just outside Kidderminster in Worcestershire. The farmers are all around Chaddesley, Corbett, and that area.
So what? Your dad was a farmer?
No, I've explained several. Do you listen to this program?
So when you? No, I don't.
Well, how can you have such strong?
I think you're an idiot.
How can you have such strong views about me then?
Because the few times I have listened to you, I heard how you speak to people. You talk over them and cut them off, like you've done to me.
Down with that sort of thing, Charlie?
You are down with that, I know. That's what you love.
I mean down with talking over people and shouting at them.
Oh, I'll shout at you. I'll give you everything that you try and give me.
I've tried to give you a fair hearing.
You haven't. You haven't at all.
Okay.
I pointed the facts to you and you won't accept it.
Okay.
You know nothing, James. Stick in your London liberal lefty wokeism. You know nothing about farming.
10:53.
Suella Braverman is a perfect example. If people genuinely act on the opinions of Suella Braverman and go out on the street and do things because they've listened to Suella Braverman, that's just absolute rubbish because people don't.
No one said they have.
Well, what you're saying is that people in positions of responsibility, let's forget about Tommy Robinson and Nigel Farage for a second, but people that are in...
No, Farage is an MP. That's a position of responsibility.
I'm happy to talk about him. I'll go on to that in a second. But people like Suella Braverman, and then you mentioned about the Daily Mail and the Sun, people that... What you're saying is that people listen to Suella Braverman, they read the Daily Mail and they read the Sun, and they form their opinions on what they read in the Daily Mail and what they read in the Sun. The United Kingdom is a fantastic country, and people have got brains in their heads and they're intelligent. And they may read the Daily Mail.
Well, they're not all intelligent, are they?
Well, I don't know.
Well, of course you know. 50% of the population is of below, or 49.9% of the population is of below average intelligence.
Well, that's a statistic I've never heard of, but I'll have to take your word for it.
Well, let's just think about it, shall we? What's half of 100%?
50.
Right, and what is an average of 100? What's the midpoint of 100?
What is this, a maths test or something? Or I'm not really sure where you're going with this.
Well, I'm just pointing out to you that what I just said isn't something controversial. What's half of 100?
50.
Right, so what is going to be below half of 100?
49.999.
So what percentage of the population is of below average intelligence?
Yeah, but where are you getting that statistic from?
Where do you think I'm getting it from?
I have no idea. You tell me.
I'm just counting. I'm just counting.
So that's your opinion that 49.999% of the population of the United Kingdom are below average intelligence?
No, it's not my opinion. It's a mathematical fact.
Where is this mathematical fact published?
Well, you don't need to publish it because 50% is half of 100%.
Yeah, but you're telling me.
Yeah.
I mean, we could go around in circles. You're telling me that
but remember, you're here to tell me that people are intelligent.
Yes, they are.
Okay, carry on.
Everybody's good at something. Trust me.
Yeah.
They are, and to say that people are below half the population is below intelligence is quite insulting.
Below average intelligence, Alan.
Well, either right is insulting.
To who?
I really think it is.
To who?
Well, to the population of the United Kingdom.
The only time I ever hear things like this is when people tell me that Nigel Farage defends British values, and I push them for some proof. I push for some proof or some evidence or some explanation, and you tell me that. For example, Sadiq Khan. I don't know what this has got to do with Nigel Farage, but hang on, because I'm just teaching you how to do fact checks. All right. So you tell me that the Mayor of London wants Sharia law to be imposed in London, and you mention a social media meme or quote, and I can find while talking to you, this isn't the BBC, I've done it all myself while talking to you. In fact, people watching on YouTube will be able to watch the process of me just simply Googling a few of the words you've said in this conversation. And up pops Reuters from July the 1st, 2020, saying, fact check, the Mayor of London did not say Sharia law is being imposed in London. Let me read some of it to you. Social media users are sharing a quote attributed to the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, implying that Sharia law is being implemented in London. This claim is false. The Mayor of London's press office has confirmed that the quote, which misspells Sharia, is fabricated. Posts showing the quote alongside a picture of Khan have hundreds of shares on Facebook, including you, I imagine, right? The quote attributed to Khan reads, "We are trialling Sharia law in 3 of London's boroughs right now. We will then roll it out in the remaining 30 next year."
Correct.
I mean, it's illiterate, James.
What?
So you're saying that was on Reuters that I was proved to be wrong.
And it's false.
Okay, well, I'll do what politicians can't do and accept that.
But look how much you've built on it.
But equally, that still doesn't change my opinion of that. When you're asking me about the British values, there still is a lot of talk about Sharia law.
Right. Well, there's a lot of talk about, I don't know, anti-vax rhetoric.
Correct.
There's a lot of talk about lots of things. That's freedom of speech, isn't it?
It is freedom of speech.
But you're not opposed to freedom of speech because you're in favour of British values.
Absolutely.
But not all speech should be free.
No, there's a difference. Freedom of speech seems to be one-sided, very one-sided.
Okay, so who doesn't have freedom of speech then?
I'd probably say the white working class man.
What do you want to say that you can't say? You can say it to me, I promise. I'll protect you.
Okay, but what I'm saying is, how do you know that I'm white? You've just assumed that there.
Okay, are you?
I am, yes. But
okay. Well, let's carry on then. What's the thing you can't say that you wish you could?
No, what I'm saying is, when you're on about British values.
No, that was you. I'm waiting for you to tell me what they are. I'm not going on about them.
No, but you were asking me, and then you're saying in terms of how it's not sort of getting out there and freedom of speech. Well, how come? And I'm not a Tommy Robinson fan, but the media was reporting that there was only.
Why aren't you a Tommy Robinson fan?
I mean, I agree with some of his points, but the way that he goes about it, it probably doesn't help.
What points do you agree with?
That we're losing societies.
But we've just established that your main reason for being fearful of Islam is completely false.
I never said that was my main concern.
What's your main concern then?
My main concern is that we, as working class British citizens, are losing a lot of our.
Lots of working class British citizens are Muslim.
And I haven't said anything against that. You're spinning words.
I'm not. I'm just saying, how can you be talking about Muslims and working class British people as if they're different? As if they're different.
I'm not.
Right. So what is the stuff you agree with Tommy Robinson about then? And I do want you to say the stuff you feel that white working class people aren't allowed to say. What sort of thing are we talking about here?
So I'll go back to earlier what you were saying about the boats coming across and what Nigel Farage has been saying.
No, I want you to tell me what you think you can't say.
I'm leading on to that. If you'd let me finish. So,
it's 11:33. I do want to talk to you for a bit longer, but just move on to it as quickly as you can, James.
No, absolutely. So,
thank you.
Tommy Robinson, he's obviously up there agreeing that we're allowing too many illegal immigrants into the country. We're allowing an army of men to come across.
Right.
There's no women
and who's not allowed to say that then?
People get branded different things if you say that.
You're always going to get branded something. I get branded lefty, loony, liberal. I mean, I think they showed a picture of me at Tommy Robinson's rally and encouraged everybody to boo. If you say stuff in public, James, then people say stuff back to you. But you were telling me about the things. You were telling me about the things that you're not allowed to say. You weren't telling me about being branded.
Yeah, you're not allowed to say that we're having too many people come across.
But you just did.
Yeah, exactly.
So how can you not be allowed to say the thing that you just said?
Because then you're shamed for it, saying, oh, well, we need to help them out.
Mate, the Conservative Party, the Labour Party and the Reform Party are all saying that there are too many people coming into this country from overseas. So what is it that you feel...
But the Conservatives and Labour won't do anything about it.
No, but we're talking about them not being allowed to say it. I just want to get to the bottom. In the same way your claim about Sadiq Khan and Sharia law, we got to the bottom of that, didn't we?
We did.
And it was complete crap, wasn't it?
Well, yes.
So now let's try now to get to the bottom of the idea that you're not allowed to say there are too many people coming here.
Because you have the left media who are saying, but we need to welcome them in.
Yeah, but that's freedom of speech as well. So you're allowed to say there's too many, and other people are allowed to say, no, there's not. Just nail me where that problem is for you personally.
We're spending £6 million a day on these illegal immigrants. £3 billion a year.
Yes, and what's the bit you're not allowed to say?
They're coming across.
Yes.
They're getting mobile phones. They're put into 5-star hotels.
Well, let's look at that then. Let's look at the 5-star. Should we look at the 5-star hotel thing then?
Whether it's 5 stars.
No, let's look at
stars,
that. Let's look at that. Let's look at the 5-star hotel. The illegal immigrants in 5-star hotels. Where are they? And where? No, let's go back again. Actually, where did you hear that?
The news.
You heard it on the news. Which news?
Yes. Various outlets.
Okay, and where are the hotels?
You've got the one which is barricaded down. Is it in Plymouth?
Mate, you don't barricade 5-star hotels. They cost about £400 a night. What would all the other guests say? That can't be a 5-star hotel, can it?
The government are booking up whole hotels. This is the thing. They're barricaded by the police because of protesters.
Yeah, but they cease to be hotels when they become asylum centres. They used to be hotels. It's just a name that's given to a building. But I want to focus on the 5-star bit. So can you name a 5-star hotel where illegal immigrants are accommodated?
Yeah, let's have a look, shall we?
Yeah.
If that's the case. So, news article here. Thousands of asylum seekers and channel migrants are living in 4- and 5-star luxury at British taxpayers' expense.
Where's that?
One of the 4 hotels used to be a house.
Where is the article?
This is on The Sun.
And where? Just finish that sentence there. One of the hotels used to be.
One of the high-end, rated in the top brackets, detonating class, and some high-end resorts nationwide are booked for months.
Yes.
Home Office officials are sitting refreshing.
So the 5-star hotel we're looking for.
So we've got a 4-star hotel, which is.
And you think that is still a 4-star hotel? That is literally taking guests alongside asylum seekers?
No, because the government.
So it's not a 4-star hotel anymore. If you stayed there, you'd be sharing a room. You'd be told what meals you were having. You wouldn't have access to the facilities that were put in place for guests because most of them would have been closed. It's a bit like, what's the nearest hotel to you, where you are now, James, in Durham? What's it like?
That's probably the Premier Inn is probably the closest.
Okay, well, I was in a Premier Inn at the weekend. So imagine that we took over that Premier Inn tonight and we turned all the rooms into dormitories. We put 2 sets of bunk beds in every room. We got rid of the menu and decided what we'd be serving up every morning and every evening. You'd have a very limited amount of choice, if you like, to what food was available. You certainly wouldn't be able to avail yourself of the bar facilities or anything like that. But the building in which this was happening used to be the Premier Inn. We'd maybe even leave the sign outside that says Premier Inn. Would you describe the people staying there in those bunk beds as staying in the Premier Inn?
Yes.
Oh, well, then you've got me bang to rights, because it's no longer the Premier Inn, according to all of the definitions that gave it that title, in any way, in exactly the same way that building over there that was once a 5-star hotel and is now an asylum centre is not a 5-star hotel anymore. Do you see that?
Well, okay, so let me flip it round to you. So say you book every single room in the Premier Inn.
Yeah.
Just for you. Is it still a hotel?
Yes.
Exactly. So what's the difference from the government fully block booking a hotel and then the housing?
Because the hotel that I'm staying in is the same as it was last year. It hasn't been turned into an asylum processing centre. We're going to run out of time, and the hotel you've just described costs £48 a night, I'm told. So it's not exactly... It's
probably a lot cheaper than what the government's paying.
Yeah, maybe. So the question then becomes, if you know that the stuff about Sharia law was completely nonsense, you know that there is not a single asylum seeker in this country living in 5-star luxury. They may be, although we failed to find a single one. They may be in a building that used to be a 5-star hotel. And we know that everything you've said about Muslims, essentially, or
I haven't said any... No, you're spinning that.
Okay, right. Scratch that last bit then. Just the stuff. Let's concentrate on the stuff about Sadiq Khan and Sharia law and nothing about Muslims and the nonsense about the 5-star hotels. Can you tell me in a sentence or two why, when you put the phone down, you're still going to believe what you believed when you rang in?
Yes, because... You've seen it on the, well, I suppose maybe being on the left and in the media might not see it as much. But
we're talking about you. You're going to, because we've established 2 things you believe are not true, and now you're going to put the phone down, and we're going to say goodbye, and you're still going to believe what you believed when you rang in. And I just want, if you could help me out as someone on the left in the media who doesn't know what the real world is like, if you want to put it like that, that might be helpful. Why will you still believe the stuff that you now know isn't true?
Because there's still areas of the United Kingdom that even the police are scared to go to.
What are those areas?
You've asked me in one sentence.
Yeah, but just give me a couple of examples of those areas.
Oldham.
The police are scared to go to Oldham.
No, there's the streets in Oldham. There's streets in Bradford. There's streets in Birmingham that the police.
Why are they scared to go there?
Because they're outnumbered.
By who?
The people that live there.
Well, the police are outnumbered by the people who live everywhere, James. On your street, the police are outnumbered by the people who live there. So who do you mean when you say the police are outnumbered?
But who
are they outnumbered by?
The foreigners that live there.
The foreigners that live there?
Yes.
How do you know they're foreign?
I mean, don't play that. You know they are. It's these areas where they've been swamped. They're not British anymore. They don't follow the British values. And this is the thing.
And we're back to where we started. What were the British values that aren't being followed? And everything you said turned out to be false. But you're going to go away convinced that these tropes, these lies, these racist stereotypes are all true. But I've got to go to the news. Thank you.
They're not stereotypes.
No. They're all, you've got the proof that they're true, but it goes to a different school, right?
I'm a rabbi, and when I heard the subject, what came to my mind was a letter that I and 31 other rabbis, progressive rabbis, I have to admit, I think apart from one of them, signed in the Sunday Times in August, when the president of the Board of Deputies protested about the possibility of the ICC holding Netanyahu to account. The 31 rabbis, including myself, wrote against the president of the Board of Deputies, upholding international law and saying that it is only international law which we have to respect, and which was in fact, after the Holocaust, it was Jewish jurists who particularly, like René Cassin, instituted it. They were very much a part of it. So we were entirely in favour that this is the right way to proceed.
I remember that letter, actually, from August of last year, and I fear it's another example of something that hasn't received anything like the level of coverage that would have been afforded to something or someone or more supportive of Benjamin Netanyahu. I don't know. I appreciate you haven't heard the whole programme, so feel free to decline the invitation to answer any other questions. But what do you think has happened over the course of the last year, Jeffrey? How has Israel found itself or been led by Netanyahu into this sort of situation?
I've been involved with Israel-Palestinian work since 1967. I co-chaired the Jewish Youth Emergency Committee when we feared that Israel was going to be wiped off the map.
Yes.
And it was an extremely emotional time. But from that point on, in fact, we were in touch with Consul General of Israel and went to him immediately after the Six-Day War. We had 3 huge warehouses full of blankets, medical equipment, tents, and we said, we need to distribute this now to the refugees who are not Jewish refugees, but who are Palestinian refugees. And he said, I think that's a really good idea. Come back tomorrow. I'll telegram Jerusalem. It was in the days of no internet. And we came back the next day, and he said, well, I'm really sorry, but the government feels that it would be a sign that we felt guilty if we were to accept that offer.
Gosh.
From that point on, I knew that I was a rabbi and not a politician. And I've been absolutely clear that the occupation is illegal. I'm horrified about what's happening at the moment. Many of my colleagues, I'm 83, so I recognise that I'm retired, and it's much easier for me than it is for a rabbi who is still trying to keep his community together, where some of them feel very much the pain, which is accurate, of the Israelis who don't get the news that we get over here. It's very censored, what they're able to see. They have to watch Al Jazeera, and I have a close colleague who's a rabbi in Israel who I talk to, so I know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
They watch Al Jazeera to know what's going on. I think that recognition of the horror of what took place on October the 7th and the recognition of the fear that has been evoked once again in the Jewish community that instead of never again, again is happening.
Yes.
And the Jewish community just feels it. It's in our bones. We're a traumatized people.
And Netanyahu has exploited that perfectly natural response.
Absolutely. Absolutely. A great big Tesco lorry. I thought I was in a quiet place with the lorry just coming past. Maybe I can hide.
Well, in a way, Jeffrey, it's a reminder of the success of the diaspora, that enormous Tesco lorry, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I compare the size of it is probably the size of the humanitarian trucks, which are not being allowed by the Israelis to go into Gaza.
Good Lord.
It's huge. It is absolutely huge. And it helps me to recognise the pain, the suffering. This last week I was in a meeting with Dr. Victoria Rose, a British plastic surgeon who's been over twice to Gaza, who you could get on your programme to describe the horror that she's seen there.
I'm so glad you were listening today, albeit belatedly, and I'm so grateful to you because you've articulated quite perfectly how difficult this is for somebody in your position and how much more difficult it would be if you still had a congregation, if you weren't retired.
But I've already paid tax on this salary. On the deposit, if you want to class it, I've tied up money, don't forget. So when I bought the property...
you pay tax on all money that we end up being able to spend.
Exactly.
Yes, and you've chosen to spend it in pursuit of more money. Instead of in pursuit of food, or instead of in pursuit of a nice holiday or something like that, on which you would also pay tax. But you'd pay tax on that as well. So it's about percentages. It's about proportions.
But I have deprived myself of going and buying a lovely car or going on holiday.
Which is why no one's going to take your house off you. You're just going to have to pay the same proportion of your income on the money you make from it that your tenant pays on the money that she works hard for, while you just sit there and count the cash.
Well, but not me, because I'm working and I've let out a property. But on the other hand, the part that I'd also
What's
like
easier?
to say
What's easier, the money that you work for or the money that you get off your tenant?
They're both just as hard.
No, they're not.
Salma,
people are listening. Salma, people are listening. They can hear you. 1.5 million people every week tuning into this programme. I don't know how many of them are listening at the moment. Could be all of them. There could be 1.5 million people listening to you now claim that, well, I suppose it depends what you do for a living. You might be a radio presenter, in which case it is a piece of cake. But you know and I know.
You know where I am at the moment?
The money you get off your tenants is much, much easier than the money you get off your boss.
It isn't, because I am in my rented property right this minute, cleaning up after my tenant.
Okay, so apart from today, then, when you had to do some work.
I've literally had problems every single month. Oh, the cooker's gone. Can you buy me a new one? Oh, this is not done.
Oh, that's hard work, isn't it? So what did you do? Hang on, let me just do this. Hang on. Wait,
I've spent my hard-earned cash.
I'm just going on Amazon. But they pay for a cooker.
I paid for a cooker.
No, they pay rent in order to be able to live in a place that has a cooker in it. Hang on. Sorry, you're distracting me.
You're saying I'm earning
a lot. I just bought a cooker. I just bought a cooker on Amazon. It'll be delivered at 1 o'clock today. How much do I invoice you for?
No. See,
that was really easy.
You're classing that.
That was really easy.
profit. No,
Yeah.
you're classing it as a profit. And
No, I'm not classing it as profit. I'm saying your job is to provide, if you are insisting on calling it a job, part of your job is to provide them with a cookie. You can't start complaining about it if they're paying rent.
Look at it also from the other side.
No, because I need you to admit.
Please.
I know. First of all, you have to admit that apart from the 30 seconds it takes you to buy a cooker or the day it takes you, or you could pay someone to clean the flat out of the money that you're making in profit, but you've chosen to do it yourself, so you will keep the money that you would otherwise have made in profit. That's easier money than the money that you actually earn.
I actually have a yield of 4%, and that actually goes back into the property to repair it.
Well, I'm not here to examine your business acumen. I'm here to examine how much effort you put in to the money to receive the money you receive in rental income compared to the money you receive as an employer. You're not my enemy.
Very hard to put the deposit into the property.
Exactly.
Which is the hard work that I
exactly. You work very
process.
hard to earn the money to pay the deposit, but you don't work very hard at all to enjoy the benefits of the investment that you made with that money. So you've just told me by accident that you work much harder. You just told me by accident. Hang on. Allow me my gotcha moment, Salma, please.
Go for it.
You just admitted accidentally that you worked very hard to earn the money that you now use to sort of subsidise or to produce the income that you don't work very hard for at all. You just did it. You said it live on the radio. You can't go back. No comebacks.
I don't think I did. I think you're putting words in my
mouth.
mouth.
No, you literally said, I worked very hard to earn the money to
preparing.
pay that deposit. You literally said it.
Yes, I did.
Yes,
I
and
did.
you didn't work very hard to earn the money that you get off your tenants.
No, I've just said that I do because I'm repairing on a constant basis.
No, well, then it's a rubbish property.
Cleaning.
Then it's a rubbish. How can you be repairing on a constant basis? You don't live in a house that needs repairing on a constant basis, do you?
It's a brand new build.
It's just your tenants that do. Well, then you made a mistake buying it. If you've bought a brand new build that needs repairing on a constant basis, that's your problem. That's a you problem. It's not a Treasury problem or a tenant problem. Peter's in the New Forest. Peter, what would you like to say?
Hi, James.
Hello, mate.
I think what we really need is something like what happened in South Africa with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, in which all sides admit to their errors, their lies and their misjudgments. And you very astutely, as you always did, pointed out what the Brexiteers got wrong. But
yes.
you don't say what the Remainers got wrong. You've consistently said it was going to be a disaster, but it hasn't been a disaster. There has been no Brexit disasters. There's been pinch points, there's been difficulties. But using language
4% of GDP for the foreseeable future is a disaster.
That was a projection.
That's Goldman Sachs, mate. That's the projection that Rishi Sunak used to use to be a hedge fund. To be a hedge fund manager.
That's a projection, and it hasn't happened.
Well, it has happened.
No, it hasn't. Goldman Sachs have been pulled up for wrong predictions in the past. Can I just give you some of the untruths that were predicted by the Remainers?
Are you here to demonstrate that the toxicity hasn't gone away, and that people like you, despite winning, are still bitter about things that were said by the other side 10 years ago?
I'm not bitter at all. I'm trying to explain why I think the toxicity has gone, because people like yourself realised you got it wrong, and therefore you're it's no good giggling.
I can't help giggling. Giggling's allowed.
Well,
Come on, giggling's allowed. Right. If people say funny things, we're allowed to giggle.
All right, you are. Well,
so what did I get wrong?
Let me tell you some funny things that were said.
No, tell me what I got wrong.
Yeah, well, I think you can either agree with these. I think you agreed with all of these. I don't listen to.
No, tell me what I got wrong.
George Osborne said house prices would fall.
Tell me what I got wrong.
I think you repeated that at the time.
I can assure you that I didn't. I was working for the BBC at the time, so I was scrupulously impartial. But what did I get wrong personally?
I'm talking. No, don't. You always do this. I'm talking about the Remainers.
You literally just said you realise you've got everything wrong, and that's why the toxicity is diminishing. I'm perfectly entitled to respond by saying, "What did I get wrong, Peter?"
About the Remainers.
What did I get wrong?
Well, I'll tell you two huge mistakes you made on your show. You said that the four freedoms were indivisible and that we would not get tariff-free trade.
No, frictionless trade.
No, you said tariff-free trade.
Frictionless trade, Peter.
No, you were wrong. You said tariff-free trade. And I've asked your producer to go back because you didn't expect
frictionless trade, and there are tariffs. There are tariffs in place.
It's on services. It's largely tariff-free.
Try and import a crate of tomatoes from France. Peter, what I'm going to do? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to channel Emily Maitlis. I'm going to channel Emily Maitlis, and I'm going to say, are there tariffs or are there costs attached to importing things? Peter, you must let me. You must let me speak.
No, you must let me.
I'm not allowed to giggle, and now I'm not allowed to speak. So the question is very simple.
You're not allowing me to speak.
Peter, I have to ask you a question before you can answer it.
No, you said we've got a degree.
Does it cost more to import goods?
You said
Peter,
we would get tariffs.
You can keep talking over me, but everyone can hear that you're not answering the question. Okay?
Yeah, you're not answering my question because you haven't allowed me to make my case.
£9.6 billion
I'll
worth.
answer your question.
Okay.
Just let me tell you some of the lies that the Remainers said, right?
No, because that's not what the phone-in is. The phone-in's not that. I want you to answer the question of whether or not...
I've answered it, and now I'm going to go on.
What was your answer?
My answer was, you said that the four freedoms were indivisible,
which is true.
And we would not.
That's in the Charter of the European Union, Peter.
We would not get any tariff.
Frictionless trade.
Tariff-free trade.
Frictionless trade. So now the question then becomes: are there now, Peter, mate? I thought you were here to tell me the toxicity had diminished.
Yeah, I have. And
you're sounding well toxic, mate.
Because you won't allow me to get to.
No, I won't allow you to avoid the question. I won't allow you to avoid the question.
No, you won't allow me to speak. You do this all the time.
No, I don't. I insist that people answer the question. Are you going to answer the question? Are you going to answer the question?
The CBI, I've answered the question, and now I'm asking you to move on. The CBI, sponsored by Price Waterhouse, and you repeated this afterwards, said that unemployment would reach.
I think we can all agree I'm never going to be Emily Maitlis, am I? If we can save the DNA of one human to restore humanity itself in the event of our extinction by an alien life form billions of years hence, who would it be?
James, Stephen Fry.
Oh, come off it.
Aliens would love a recreation of Blackadder.
This is from JVR. Anne Widdecombe. She might be bitter, but she's strong. I'm going for Luke Littler at the moment. The man's a prodigy.
What sprang to mind with me straight away was Gary Barlow.
Why?
Because he's just, he's young, he's fit, he's a handsome man, and he's just, and hold on, let me finish, and he's squeaky clean.